If you're ever thinking about going to night church, just letting you know, you gotta at least have just one type of theology or something like that. Because if you don't, you're gonna get cooked and lose some brain cells. Hey, Bruskies. Before we basically start, I gotta pretty much just say something real quick. Is this clean though? And like for real though, Brusky, you for real got this cactus, this fucking dice and shit, this whole guitar and all that mess? Yep, yeah, basically the fucking world is off. So. Oh, and I basically did forgot about something real quick. You're able to actually customize this world. Like, come on over here, boy. Like, I'm not totally sure how to. So I'm not totally sure on how to balance the camera and such like that, but yeah, this is pretty much like all this shit. Like, you're able to actually like go to optimization. You're able to change the settings, and yeah, pretty much. And also this thing right here. This is basically like for music, like for all the like the TVs right there, one right there, and apparently that one right there, and yeah, pretty much just everything else. Pretty much. Where do we basically start off? Well, I'll have to say I have to start off. I'm a Christian. I've been there for at least like between 2 years. And I'll basically say and admit my whole experience in there made me upright as a person with more knowledge and basically is able to be ready for uncomfortableness and untalkative like situations. But you have to answer yourself this one quick question. What is the cost of being at night church? Well, sometimes you'll lose your brain cells. And the only reason why I'm basically saying that you lose your brain cells is because the kind of shit that you basically hear and see in that place that you would not even discover like in real life, my dude. And we'll just basically start off like with this one story. I'm not gonna say any names over here, but I'm gonna just say like the depictions of the avatar, their names and such like that. So this particular guy is Bonnie, and he's been there like in my first year, and yeah, he basically says some crazy shit. And to basically give you the whole shtick of like what he believes, like he's basically an atheist, a little weird atheist. Cause to give background check real quick, like he did used to be like a Catholic person. He used to like, you know, read quote unquote like about the Bible for about like some time now. And the like literally he argues in the most shittiest way possible. Like for an example, about the Ten Commandments. About the Ten Commandments, I was basically arguing with him, and somehow, some way, like we got into this position of like about the specific commandment of do not murder or shall not kill. And what I'm basically like, you know, trying to do my research and such like that is that the fourth, like all the way to 1 and 4th of the commandments is basically the relationship with God, and the 5 between 10 is basically the relationship with the human beings. And with the 7th one, it's supposed to be about like, you know, caring people, and you're not supposed to like, you know, kill those like, you know, motherfuckers and such like that. And yes, it pretty much depends on the whole situation, so do not strawman me. But that what that person was doing, man. Like, he did strawman me in the most weirdest fucking way possible. Is that he said, oh, we can basically go ahead and kill animals now. Like, are we dead ass right now? What type of correlation does that basically say we're able to basically slaughter animals now because it's just human relationships? Like, you cannot have a conversation with that person. And then the second event that I will basically tell you is the pagan one. The pagan one. For the pagan one, like, it gave me like 3 definitions of what pagan is. The first one, I think, is about like having multiple gods, and he said no, like you can call me a pagan or whatever, but I'm not a pagan, such like that. Second one would be like a small religion, like you know, like the Norse gods and such like that. That's a small religion, so that example will basically be like a small religion. And to him, it's basically like, no, I'm not a pagan, such like that. Oh, I guess. And For third definition, the European gods. So, despite all those 3 definitions, guess what I basically heard, like, after later on real quick. So, giving you a little context real quick, we basically argued about, like, you know, this and that, and then we asked him a question. Yes, there's another person, obviously, there's a whole group, is that their question was that, what do you believe in? And this person literally told me straight up, like, Greek gods. Like, how can I not call you pagan when you basically believe in Greek gods and it fulfilled the 3 definitions of what I gave you, man? And he definitioned that, mind you. If your definition was that, how can I not call you like an actual pagan, my dude? Greek is literally European. Hey, broski, I'm sorry for basically interrupting this video real quick, but it's actually pretty much a fast one and actually an important one real quick. I actually partnered myself with Poggers, and it's an energy drink, and if you want to basically go ahead and start, like, you know, drinking some energy drinks and get some cups and such like that, here is my code for that. And this is basically, by the way, is how I get paid and how you guys get the discounts. About 10% off, and it gives me a 30% of the commission. And hopefully you guys can help me out to basically start off my journey in the future. Alright, back to the video. So, with this third story, and this happened in the same time period as the whole genocide thing, of this person was trans, and they were trying to basically argue about this whole, like, don't force this on me type of bullshit. Their whole saying of, like, do not force this on me is kind of like a fucking excuse for almost literally everything. Like, for an example, you be a Jehovah's Witness and there's trying to be like a needle trying to get into you to extract blood, and you be like, bro, I'm a Jehovah's Witness, do not force that shit on me, I'm not consenting to this shit. But the motherfucker that's speaking to you is your fucking doctor, and it's just like, bro, you have cancer cells. We're gonna have to do this shit so we can actually identify what the fucking cancer is, my dude. Or basically another one is basically like you're drinking, or like not just drinking, you're just taking a sip of fucking whiskey, like a bottle of whiskey, and then another person is just being like, hey, I'm, like, you know, a little concerned for you. Could we just, like, you know, take a pause on that one? And then you basically be like, motherfucker, I'm able to do whatever the fuck I want. This is my body, this is my choice. You can't force this shit on me. And then next thing you know, you're basically 4 bottles deep in a fucking zoo, getting pegged by a fucking bald eagle, and then speaking in a foreign language that is never discovered before. And with that whole, like, sentence, it's just straight up bullshit and fucking excuse. Because that can literally be applied to fucking everything, my dude. To be honest with you real quick, to all the people that want to be saying, like, you know, this is transphobic and such like that, or don't force this shit on me, well, I'll play this game with you. I won't, quote unquote, force this onto you. You can do whatever the fuck you want, but I don't want you to force that shit onto me or anybody else. That's the whole deal I want to make real quick. Because, hey, you do not want me to force that shit on you, and I do not want you to force that shit on me. So basically meaning, I don't want your pronouns to basically afflict me. I want to basically not do that because you're forcing that shit on me. So basically meaning, if you, like, are trying to identify yourself as a woman, and I see you as a fucking penis, realistically, and hit all that mess, I'm calling you fucking man. No matter what, broski. And you're not gonna force that shit onto me. And if you're gonna be calling me transphobic and such like that, then you're proving my fucking point. You're basically forcing your whole ideology, your whole shtick onto me, but you do not want to force this shit onto you. Like, isn't that fucking hypocritical, my dude? That's contradictory, to be honest. And another thing with you, like, with the whole some of them, and I'm not basically saying, like, all transphobics basically say this, I'm saying only some, and that also was the some part, is that they will basically say, like, I gave them a fucking question of, like, what is a woman? And they straight up told me, like, a woman is a person who identifies a woman. Like, bro, they are getting so fucking delusional every single fucking time, my dude. I have to deal with this shit 24/7. If that is basically what a woman is, why would you fucking fight for it, my dude? Like, come on. You can't just be, like, saying that Christian is someone who identifies a Christian, but this particular Christian in the far right real quick is actually fighting for their freedom and for their belief system. Like, I would not just say that it's just quote-unquote identifying as a Christian. I'm basically seeing that Christian as, like, a person that is strong in their belief because of what this belief has. So, basically, same thing with you, my dude. Like, if you basically are trying to fight for something that's, like, trying to be a woman, then you wouldn't basically fight for something that's just simply anyone who identifies as a woman. Also, the reason why I basically say, like, it gets delusional every single more fucking time is that there is another person, like, you know, not in the same time period, it was just basically more, like, earlier and such like that, is that this person straight up told me that transgender, like, starts in your birth. Like, it basically happens when you're a baby. To be honest with you, fucked up, to be honest, because you're basically not only forcing that shit onto children, and two, is that you're basically switching it up, like, from mental to science. Like, I'll have to say, like, admittingly, that there are, like, you know, some or most, like, transgender that will basically say, hey, it doesn't start biologically. It starts mentally. So basically meaning, like, from their whole stick, is that, like, it always starts from the mind, and then it starts to, like, you know, fall out and such like that. Like, for an example, hey, I think I'm a woman. So, hey, I'm gonna be a woman. And then the whole process basically starts off into basically not just mentally, but then to physically. Like, you're physically changing your gender and such like that. Like, that, like, you know, that makes actually sense. But now some other people are basically saying, like, this is fucking science. Like, for real, man, I would basically rather live in a society of where, like, gay people, trans people, queer people basically, like, accept anxiety and actually be socially acceptable to the point of where it's like, hey, you're actually chill, man. You're the actual chill person. I'm gonna, like, you know, mess with you. But people are, like, you know, fucking that up, to be honest, and making so much division that people are now becoming, like, you know, transphobic gay people, like, such like that. And, I probably might as well, like, give out bonus talk and such like that. And it was just basically, like, a year ago past and such like that. So, I basically know that I was gonna cook in night church, like, you know, long days ago and such like that. And to the future, to be honest. Because one time, I was trying to explain this person, and which I think was a Muslim at that time, and about, like, how Judas died and who bought the money and such like that. So, how I basically explained was that how, like, you know, the Pharisees and, like, you know, Jews bought the money is that it's talking about two different POVs, one quick. One is talking about physical and one's talking about the source. So, the physical is in Matthew, that's talking about the Pharisees, that they bought the land, and Acts is talking about the source of the money is from Judas, so Judas is the one that bought the money. Like, for an example, like, how this basically plays out is basically, like, for an example, you gave, like, I basically gave money to this person so they can buy a, like, you know, fucking gummy worms, such like that. They physically bought the gummy worms, but I am the source that bought the gummy worms. Does that make sense? Yeah, that makes sense, you know. And how about how Judas died is that Matthew is talking about instantly, while Acts is talking about a later time. So with Matthew, he's talking about, like, how Judas actually hanged himself after, like, you know, the whole Pharisees type of thing. And then Acts is talking about, like, after some time, like, the branch that basically, it's either, like, a branch or something like that, but either way, he fell. And then after that, his guts exploded. And you'll probably be wondering real quick, is that contradictory? And to some of you, it looks like it, but actually logically no, it's not a contradictory. And reason why, here's a reason why. So how it's basically detailed about like headlong first, it's not actually saying it hits the head first, it's talking about as in front, like the front side. Like, I'll even give you an actual example real quick. Hold on real quick. So headlong, like by definition, like I try to even look for its definition, but the examples actually worked real quick. Because like for an example, like you see this wall real quick, you see that wall, motherfucker? I'm running straight long, like headlong to this wall. I'm running to this, like, you know, wall and such like that. So that indicates to me logically that it's actually, like, you know, front side and not the actual head. And how the guts exploded is that it was actually a scientific thing about how, like, have you basically like watched of how like there's cows, whales, hippos and such like that they died and their like guts, like, you know, bellies are basically starting to like expand because of the bacteria that's basically being filled and, like, you know, being built up like rapidly. Because when you basically die scientifically, the bacteria in your body starts to form more rapidly and to expand because there's no opening. And because there's no opening, there's basically, like, for example, a needle, like a little slightly tiny needle. If it pokes that, fucking explodes. The whole guts will basically be all over your body, my dude. And that's basically by the whale, by the way. And not just, like, you know, me, but all the groups, like, basically, like, 50 people and stuff like that. And that is how, like, you know, the indication for the whole Judas thing about the field and how, like, you know, how he died basically worked out. But there was a particular group that was basically coming along over here and telling me about, like, you know, the whole interpretation of me, like, you know, I'm doing this wrong because I'm not doing it with church side. And I basically, like, you know, did have a problem with them because all they're just doing is just revolving around, like, you know, authority as their whole main point. And they're trying to basically, like, pull up, like, you know, an early church father thing. And I'm basically was like, no. And the only reason why I basically said no is that, again, these motherfuckers were trying to basically do authority-wise instead of arguing logically and actually trying to argue from, like, hey, this problem actually makes sense. So probably, like, you know, after some time and such like that, like, I guess I allowed them or something like that. They basically looked it up for themselves. And mind you, real quick, this is basically the peak hope of me actually being a philosopher and also apologetic, is that they straight up told me, coincidentally, that I got the exact same interpretation as the early church fathers. How insane is that shit? Like, actually, how insane is it coincidentally that I got the exact same interpretation as the early church fathers without even going to the early church father sources? Like, broski, I'm literally like Aristotle, my dude. And, yeah, that's pretty much, like, all my experiences, such like that. So, lesson learned real quick. From my experience, you gotta get prepared, to be honest. Like, you at least got to get, like, a belief that is actually structurable and cannot be breakable, because you basically get fucked up so many times if you do not actually have a prepared plan. You do not actually know the logic, like the 3 laws of logic that are basically the law of identity, consistency, and no middle ground, and other things you gotta pretty much, like, know, to be honest. Like, I'm just gonna put it right here, to be honest. Like, fuck it, man. Anyways, that's all I just pretty much just gotta say real quick. Is just be careful, like, with debates and just people in general, because you'll probably not know what the fuck they will basically do, to be honest. But yeah, that's basically what I gotta do to indicate this video. So yeah, so hopefully you basically are okay. Stay safe and stay strong, stay safe, and stay happy. Peace.